Okie dokie, guys. We're looking today at Grow Kids Minds number 6, which is changing our I can'ts into how can I's. So this comes from, a lot of this stuff comes from when it's coming up at home, or it's things that people ask me. But I see this a lot. I see this a lot with parents. I see this a lot with the kids. Sometimes I even see this in myself. So this is a really good one. And this is probably one of the best ones that I use as well with my business coaching when I'm doing the mindset coaching in business stuff. This is a big thing that pops up. And sometimes as adults it pops up using different language, but it's still meaning the same thing. So it's a good one to hit on the head. All right, so let's get into it. So first thing that we want to look at is identifying when someone is saying I can versus an I can't statement. And the difference being that when you're saying I can't do something, I can't ride that bike, I can't finish that presentation for work, I can't get up early, I'm not a morning person. That's one I hear a lot. All those can'ts, they're restrictive. And what happens is when you use the word can't, it's a definite end. It's a definite end point. And so if you're using the word can't in a sentence, then your brain is already saying, okay, that's it. Don't worry about worrying about it, because that's a definite finish, stop sign. Can't do any more than that. Can't. All right. So when we're hearing it with the kids, we want to make sure we're recognizing that as well. And as wonderful role model adults, we want to make sure that we're hearing ourselves say it as well. So I will hear myself. If I hear myself say I can't, the kids pick me up. We'll get to that in a second. But even if I hear myself saying it internally in my head, because it all starts up here. And it's the same with our kids. It all starts up here, and then eventually it comes out here. So we want to make sure that we're getting this part right, and then this part will be right, and then our actions will be all right as well. So the difference between saying I can't versus I can't yet, or how can I, completely changes the ball game. Because when you're saying I can't, not only is it a definite endpoint, but it also gives you, it's also a passive. It gives you the release of not having responsibility for taking that. It's out of your control. Whereas when I say I can't do that yet, or how can I do that, it's changing the whole meaning of the word. I'm no longer passive in that sentence. It's all about me taking action and what can I do to change the situation. So when we're teaching our kids, you'll probably get the kids coming home from school and they're using the power of yet, which means that they're adding yet onto the end of their can't statements. So I can't do algebra yet, or I can't grow a plant yet. So by adding that yet onto the end, it means not only are they taking responsibility now for what's going on, but they're also, they have the power. So rather than it being something passive that's happening to them, they now have that ability to take control of it, and it's something that they get to choose how they deal with it. So we want to make sure that we're listening for those statements and we're turning them around. So we're either adding a yet onto the end when you're hearing them, or we're saying how can I with our kids. And as they get older, yet's really good with the younger kids because they can kind of understand, oh, hang on, yet, okay, but I'm still going to work towards it. As they're getting older, then you want to start asking, all right, well, no, you can't do that yet, but how can you do it? How can you work towards it? And that'll start changing their mindset. So I can remember this. I can remember this happening with me, and I guess I don't know. I didn't learn the concept as this specifically as this being the concept, but I remember always growing up with, well, how can I do it? My father was very, you can have everything you want, but you need to put the work into it. And I can remember that still to this day. I don't even know the first time he said that to me, but I know that I used that sentence in my head from day dot. And, I was working young. I was still at school. I went to uni, did lots of extra subjects and things. And I did a whole bunch of different things based on that concept, based on him saying to me at some point, you can have anything you want, but you have to put the work in for it. And And so now I try and do that with the kids. You know, if you want something, well, you're gonna have to work towards it. It's not just going to be given to you. And so part of that is being, okay, well, I want that, like identifying, I want that. How am I going to get it? And then I would create my plan towards getting it. And I mentioned just then with uni, you know, when I first went to uni, I was on a scholarship, and I didn't enjoy going to uni straight out of high school. So I stopped. And then I went back the next year and did a different subject. So for me, in my brain, I was like, I'm a year behind. I'm a year behind everyone else that started straight out of school. And so I wanted to finish that degree at the same time that my friends or the people that I would have started with finished. And I was told by the head lecturer, this was the education degree. So I was told by the head lecturer, it's impossible. You can't do it. It cannot be done. I'm like, oh, I just don't believe it cannot be done. So I sat and I worked out all the subjects across the 4 years and how I could move 1 or 2 subjects every semester in, and I could do summer school and winter school at certain times. There were certain subjects. So how can I get these subjects in? And even one of the subjects, one of my electives, I had to go to TAFE to do. So, you know, it was a bit chaotic, and 4 was a full-time workload, and I was doing 6 subjects sometimes. So it was a bit crazy, but I graduated with that class, and I graduated with honours with that class. And, you know, for me, it was okay. It wasn't a matter of I can't do this. I heard his words, but I don't agree. How can I do this? And I worked out a way to do it. And so with the children, I'm always looking for how can you do it? What can you do to work towards it? And sometimes, you know, I had people comment on like, oh, you know, such and such never gives up. Like they always just give it a go, even if they're going last, or even if they're worried about it beforehand. Like they just keep going, and they don't give up, because maybe somewhere in there it's happening for them too. All right, so changing things from I can't to I can, or how can I, adding yet onto the back end. They're really important things in the starting process of this. So if you've got a child that's I can'ting a lot, that's okay, and it's actually quite normal. And we just want to pick one of those things. So if they're a little younger, we're going to add yet onto the end. Can't do that yet, but what can I do now? And as they're getting older, no, you might not be able to do that yet, but what can you do it? How can I get to that point? And get them to start thinking about that process. Those words are super powerful. And I did mention at the start, so accountability, which is in the blog post as well, is a huge thing. So we make, you can make a game out of it. You know, the kids love games. But one of the big things in the family is that we identify when one of us is having or making a fixed mindset statement. So if the kids hear me say, I can't blah, 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 I will always hear on the end of it, you can't do it yet, Mum. So, you know, they're responsible for holding me accountable to make sure that my language is correct, the same way that I do it back to them. And, you know, it's good. It's good because it helps us to pick up, as adults, it helps us to pick up on our stinking thinking and be able to reverse that around and model for them what our growing, glowing words are. So if I'm saying, I can't cook, I'm terrible at it, you know, I'll hear one of the kids say, well, you can't cook yet, Mum. And then I'll say, oh, okay, how can I be a better cook? And I'll verbally say it so that they can hear the language that I'm using, and that translates for them. All right, so with that, accountability and asking good questions. So if our son forgot his violin for school the other day, and the office rang me up and the lady was laughing, and she said to me that he'd come to the office to ask if he can walk across to pick up his violin from home, which she said no. And he said, I'm so irresponsible. I forgot my violin. And he's 7. So he's irresponsible. He's forgotten his violin. But he's also realised, I'm irresponsible. I've forgotten my violin. How can I get it? I can either walk down the road and get it myself, which he was not allowed to do, thank goodness, or I can ask the office to call Mum and see if she can bring it up. So those were his solutions at that point in time. And we talked about later on, you know, I'm really happy that you figured out a solution and you asked a good question around it. But I also, you know, let's not say that we're irresponsible. In this situation, you were slightly irresponsible because it's your role to go and look at your timetable and work out what you need. However, it was, you know, it's a one-off and you don't need to be irresponsible all the time. How are we going to improve for next time? I'm going to make sure I get up. First thing I'm going to do is check that list in the morning of what I need for school that day. So that's what he's doing now. Okay, so it's really important that we change our can'ts to cans. That is a huge, huge thing. If I can ask you all to do anything, it's to change that language, the dialogue that's going on, because if they're saying it out loud, then it's already been happening up here. And so when I'm hearing kids talking about how they can't do things or they shouldn't, or, you know, maybe some things they probably shouldn't be doing, it's not a good idea to do, then I'm automatically looking to flip that around. And that's part of growth mindset, but it's also part of changing our children's mindset so that they're less focused on the passive side and more involved in being able to grow their own mindset. And a lot of that's through the words. A lot of that is through the words. So guys, that's it. Send me your can't stories. I love them. And if you're getting some can'ts and you turn them into can't yets and your kids are picking you up, if you're playing that game with them and they start picking you up on things, I love those stories too. They're pretty funny a lot of the time. Okay, so you can reach us at growkidsminds.com and all of the Grow Kids Minds social media as well. Okay, guys, have a great week and I will see you next week.